when you say paying attention to an individual, for businesses that have over 250 staff, for instance, it's a lot of work. To be able to know which particular staff is facing those stressful periods at this particular point in time and affecting. Okay, yes, definitely, it will show in the productivity level of such an employee. But then, how often should an appraisal be done in terms of knowing the stress levels of employees? Should it be a monthly thing? Should it be bi-monthly? Should it be done by the organization, or should it be outsourced?
Well, it depends on the organization. There's really no rule to that. It could be outsourced, it could be done by the organization. But one thing about organizational stress, it's largely dependent on good management. If you have good management, it will largely be checked. So you can't just trying to sort individual stress. That is almost an impossible venture. So it starts at the level of management, putting in structures, things to support the worker to function at its optimum. You know, things as something as basic as trainings, development, ensuring that an individual has a path. He has a career path. He can say, okay, if I put in my best, I'm going to get this. Things as, you know, your remunerations. Making sure that people get fairness. You know, there's equity in the organization. When people play down on those things, when people, or conflict resolution, you know, certain behaviors are, you know, just allowed to go that, you know, unchecked. Those are the things. In fact, one study showed that most people's stress in an organization really was largely arising from management and their managers, their line heads. So because sometimes you have great workers, fantastic workers, high-flying workers, they are promoted to become managers, but they really don't have good people skill. So they start managing people and they are taxing them, and they don't even recognize that this individual is stressed. You know, I see it every day. You know, they can't see it, so they keep putting on pressure and pressure and pressure. I was talking with someone just yesterday, and he was telling me how much stress he was feeling from his line head. You know, so it's something as for management now has to put in checks and balances to ensure that their managers are trained to recognize these things in their subordinates. So that's a simple thing. You can't start going to, you know, individuals. Then also to add to this, what you said, it can also not be a one-off thing. It has to be a continuous thing. Managing stress in the workplace has to be a continuous thing. You know, it has to be continuous.
But then we live in an environment, we live in times that are pretty dire. And so all of these things that you've enumerated, I'm very sure that most companies are not unconcerned about the welfare of their workers in terms of how they handle stress. But then looking at the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment, we'll have to, like I said, businesses are in it for profit. And it's not a hand-holding situation that we want to find ourselves in. So now for employees, they also have a responsibility to themselves and to the organization that they work for. For such employees, how can they begin to identify these stressors or stress patterns that they usually undergo, and ensure that they check it before it becomes a problem for themselves, co-workers, customers, and the organization? Okay,
let me backtrack a little, then I'm going to answer your question. You see, the reason why people don't see that it affects the bottom line of the business is that, let me give you some statistics. Now, a lot of statistics show that when stress management is intentionally inculcated or integrated into organizations, it actually improves their, you know, return on investments. It improves it. That a lot of statistics show that. Also, in terms of healthcare, a lot of organizations spend a lot of money on healthcare. And there was a study as far back as in the 1960s that showed that over 60% of people who went to the hospital, workforce now, to see the clinicians, were somatizing their stress. Soma means body. So when they say someone is somatizing his stress, it means that you do all the investigations. Yes, you may find malaria in the body, but it's not because of malaria per se. It's that this individual is stressed. Then also, there's something called presenteeism. There's a concept called presenteeism, where the worker is at work, but is not really at work. So all this reduces the bottom line at the end of the day. And research has shown, quite a number of research has shown that when you put in measures, their return investment goes up. The bottom line increases. So when people understand this, they will begin to pay attention to checking those things. Then back to what you said, the individual.
Yes, and we're looking at managing emotional health and stress at the workplace to ensure better productivity drive in organizations. And I've been having a conversation with the medical director of Grace Hill Medical Consult. He's also an occupational mental health consultant, Dr. Otefe Edebi. Thank you so much, Dr. Edebi, for sticking around.
My pleasure.
So let's get back to that point. We're going to talk about how an employee can actually identify those stress patterns or stressors, so to speak, to ensure that it doesn't affect his own productivity output or how he relates to co-workers or clients or customers, and of course distort the company's or the organization's profitability.
Okay. Well, first of all, it starts out like when I define what stress is, I said it's an adverse reaction. Now, the reaction could either be physiological, so that means the person may start having physical symptoms. So you're in the workplace, you fall ill a lot, you may begin to think that maybe possibly this is stress.
It could be that he's just allergic to the workplace.
It could be, yes. Yeah, it could be. Then it could be cognitive. You know, cognitive refers to your thought process. You know, when you notice that you start having, you somehow lose concentration. You are not really, you are not really there. You have mental blocks and all that, not that creative again. You begin to think that maybe I'm stressed. You know, it could also be which is what everybody will readily identify with, your mood, your feelings. You feel depressed, you feel anxious, feel irritable, you know, get snapping all the time. If you just notice that this is not me, you know, things I just, I would take before, but now I just get really upset about it. Or maybe you start crying and weeping, you know, and all that, you know that, okay, this is really getting to me. Then it could also show, the reaction could be in behavior. You know, there are certain behaviors that one starts putting up. It may sometimes show in terms of not being able to sleep. It could sometimes show in increased consumption of alcohol or other things that could be adverse to one's health. So all these things are just simple signs to say it's possible that currently I'm being stressed. Then the second step, it starts first by identifying that I may just be stressed. The second thing will now be, what is causing my stress? For me to identify what has changed, what's different. You know, interestingly, sometimes the stress can be chronic. So you may not even notice anything has changed. It could just be the harsh environment, the hostile environment, because everything constantly changes. Even things that are working, then they bring tomorrow and say we have to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade and upgrade, and you are constantly, you know, under pressure. So